Hey everyone, Tom here. Welcome back to Watching the Watchmen. This is an infrequent podcast where myself and my co-host are exploring all things Watchmen. Not necessarily all things Alan Moore, Dave Gibbons, John Higgins Watchmen. Shout out to the man Jay Higgs especially. Check out the episode that we did quite a few months ago now. But yeah, we're mostly going through the classic graphic novel, but we're also looking at its sequel, its prequel, the HBO adaptation. There's just loads of things going on, and it's not just myself, it's the man Deff as well. Deff, how's it going?
What's happening, everyone? Hope you're all having a lovely read-through of Doomsday Clock, like we all are.
So, we've got a few things to get through today. You know, we actually have an email to read out, which is quite rare.
Quite a few comments, Tom. I'm just quickly trying to organise them now.
Right.
So I've got them. I've got the comments. We're ready to go. Oh, we're recording. Shit.
We're recording, the green light is going, or the red light, or whatever. There's some sort of, we're close to midnight, and before we get to Doomsday 5, let's talk a little bit about, I guess, Watchmen news before we get into the email as well. As a lot of people are aware, Watchmen is coming to HBO in some form, although it's clear from what's been released, it's been about a month or so since we did our last episodes, there's been a big dump of information, that this isn't really Watchmen. I mean, Lindelof says it's a remixed version, Deff?
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to be like, to be honest.
Yeah. Don't call it Watchmen!
Yeah, don't call it Watchmen.
You don't need to call it Watchmen.
It would be better if they just made a TV show and then the twist at the end of it was like, oh shit, it's Watchmen.
Yeah, it'd be like that.
Split the other year, they did that. They just did a normal movie, and then at the end it turned out to be like an Unbreakable sequel. That'd
be great. And all that shitty Robert Pattinson film from like 2008 where the twist is that it takes place on 9/11 and the final scene is like it's a shitty film.
I haven't seen that. I was going to watch it tonight.
But there's nothing to do with 9/11 in the entire film. And then it's just like, oh yeah, he was in the towers or whatever. But yeah, I don't really understand. I mean, Lindelof shared something on his Instagram. He's one of the most infuriating people to follow on Instagram, I would say. He's got such a weird, memey sense of humour that I don't really like. And it's like, I do have respect for Damon Lindelof in some sense. Certainly on TV, I think he has a lot of ideas. Like, have you ever seen The Leftovers?
I haven't, no. I've heard it's really good, though.
It's quite good, actually, yeah. I've started watching it. The problem is I started watching the first episode and it's quite mystery-based. And I thought to myself, fuck it, I'm just going to read what the ending is. So I spoiled it entirely. Wow. I know where the 2% go. It's actually quite a good ending. I was quite surprised how creative it was and satisfying. But
Did you even watch that 9/11 movie, Tom, or did you just spoil it for yourself as well?
I just skipped. I was a Robert Pattinson fan. It was 2008. We all were. Shout out Eclipse. But yeah, so essentially,
I don't remember that period, Tom.
You don't. Well,
I don't remember that era.
It was,
I must have missed that.
But yeah, the Watchmen TV show is coming after Leftovers. So in Lost, obviously Lindelof has a bit of a legacy. But yeah, my fear is that it's going to be a bit like Doomsday Clock that we're discussing today, where it's going to be a lot of touchstones, a lot of wink moments. But you think to yourself, what's really the point?
Yeah, I really don't know. It just sounds like it's going to be supplementary material, and it's probably going to. I'm sure they said a time period was that it's taken place after Watchmen as well. I mean, I suppose that gives them free reign to kind of do what they want, and it also means that they're not going to mess up the source material. But I don't really care, to be honest.
No, me neither. Lindelof
Watchmen doesn't need sequels.
No, definitely doesn't. Doesn't need prequels. Doesn't need tie-in fucking iPhone games. I think that's the only thing they did for the movie was like a sort of side-scroller where you played as Night Owl and Rorschach. I've watched a YouTube video of it. I've never actually...
Yeah, they did a PlayStation 3 game as well, yeah. That was sort of a beat-em-up as well. Yeah. I remember playing the demo of that.
Yeah. It would be cool if... on like the DC fighting games, you could play as like Manhattan or Rorschach or something.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Doomsday Clock kind of shows that they're gonna maybe bring them into the main universe and put them in stuff like Injustice. They might do a Lego game on them. I just bought Lego Marvel Avengers.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Stupid. I hate the Lego games, right? But I'm just so into Marvel at the moment that I was just like, oh, you know what, I'm going to do it. I recently bought a tablet to read like stuff digitally, and I just found Marvel Unlimited. I found out about them. Basically, you pay £9 a month. Sounds a bit like an advert, this, doesn't it? But you get access to basically millions of comics.
Oh, that's cool. What, pretty much the whole archive, is it?
Yeah, so I bought a tablet to read that. because it's just digital. But I'm quite looking forward to going through everything on that.
That's cool, actually. And yeah,
especially because I run a comic book website. And it's very expensive to constantly buy graphic novels.
It is. I feel kind of bad, actually, because Oxford has one comic book store where I live, and I've reserved Doomsday Clock, and I keep getting emails like every month, like, issue 3, 4, and 5 are here, Tom. Issue 6 is here. I'm like, I'm not putting down 25 quid for this crap. I'm sorry.
No, definitely
I'm not willing to pay. And yeah, I don't mind those Lego games because I like Lego and I like seeing the designs of the characters and stuff. But I've played those games and they're literally for 4-year-olds. They're just like collector fun games, aren't they?
Yeah, they're not very well made either. So you literally just get killed all the time, but you're invincible. Like, you have unlimited lives, so it's just a for fun. But you get to see bits from the movie, Tom. You know what I mean? You get Lego. You know what? One of my favorite things from all the Marvel movies is Iron Man suiting up. Every movie they do a different suit up, right? And on the Lego game, you can get all the suits, and every single time you suit up, he's got a different animation. I'm like, whoa, this is really good. This. What do you mean it's for 4-year-olds?
Can't you play as like 100 characters? That is pretty cool. There seems to be a lot of There's like a DC one coming out. DC Villains. I saw some.
Yeah, that just got announced yesterday as well. So yeah, it's all kicking off.
Well,
Lego.
Lindelof, you can go through his Instagram and see, but I think the most important part is here. Quote, "We have no desire to adapt the 12 issues that Mr. Moore and Mr. Gibbons created." Mr. Higgins as well, Lindy, come on.
Yeah, get Higgins on, friend of the podcast.
30 years ago, those issues are sacred ground and they will not be retread, nor created, nor reproduced, nor rebooted. They will, however, be remixed because the bass lines, the bass lines in those familiar tracks are just too good and would be fools not to sample them. What do you mean? What does that mean?
I always say it's sacred ground, but then that's like someone saying, "Oh, this green belt part of land, we're not allowed to build on it, but we're going to put a fucking car park right beside it."
Yeah, exactly. It's sacred. The topsoil will take the nutrients will fucking rip out, but the tree's still there. Yeah, it's I mean.
Remix sounds like such a weird way to describe it to you. I've never heard that phrase used before either.
No,
like a remix of something.
Yeah, outside of music. Yeah, it's certainly not in film or comic books. Yeah, it's odd, but in the future we'll see. Who knows? Maybe just don't call it Watchmen. Why? Just call it something. Even call it like a reference to Watchmen or something like that, or a quote from it, or I don't know. But they've got to have that brand recognition there. So just before we get to the day's discussion of issue 5 of Doomsday Clock, checking back in with Eric Ferguson. He sends the greatest emails. I do a few podcasts and receive emails from people, and these are some of my favourite things to read out of any. So shout out to Eric. He was basically responding to our issue 10 of the original Watchmen run. He says, "Hello there. Only 43 minutes long and some seconds of the podcast for issue 10. Your final podcast should be like Game of Thrones, where the episodes get longer and longer as the finale looms. You guys did an excellent job breaking down the issue." And then he's just referencing certain things we spoke about. He says, "Supremely good catch in Gerald Ford tripping as he walks down the steps. This also showcases how well Alan Moore is versed in American politics. Even if Nixon had not resigned, Alan Moore is telling us here that Spiro Agnew would have resigned due to corruption," who was Nixon's second-in-chief. Interesting. As a historian, I always appreciate how well someone from another country understands the minutiae of American history and politics. I must say, we do not give a fuck about this kind of thing with other countries. This is in contrast to Geoff Johns in Doomsday Clock, who refers to President Robert Redford.
I thought you were going to say resigned there, Tom.
Fucking remixing. Absolutely no thought went into that. It would have been better if he referred to President Gary Hart or Ted Kennedy instead. Yeah, that's true. Ted Kennedy would have cool. I then started monitoring the panels and looking for details and caught one. There was a significant uniform change for the US Army in the early 1980s as we switched from the traditional green you see in Vietnam War movies to the BDUs, or wood forest camouflage, seen in the ever-classic Heartbreak Ridge. The German-style Kevlar we still use in service by 1983 and does not appear in the panels of the first few pages of issue 10 showing US military personnel. It is apparent that in 1986 they are wearing the old green and old tin pot helmets. Another detail that I saw but was not able to figure out was the painting to the left of the stairwell on page 8, which we pointed out in in Karnak, in Ozzie's lair. It surely has to be a famous painting. I did an image search of Alexander the Great and Ramesses on Google and could not locate anything. To the left of the painting, we can see all the TV monitors. Dave Gibbons shows us that he has an excellent layout where everything is. It's not just hodgepodge of whatever is convenient. Work and thought and care went into preparing that drawing. Thanks for sharing about the 1959 Batman comic book you got at your wedding, Def, which we spoke about. Congratulations on getting married. So yeah, I mean, we've had a bit of a break because you've been on your honeymoon, which is crazy, man.
Yeah, so that's why this episode's so delayed. Been away for 2 weeks in Mexico. A funny story. We were watching TV one night, and an advert actually came on for the Watchmen movie in Spanish. I don't know why we were watching Spanish TV, but you know, and it's called Los Vigilantes. So it kind of loses some of the subtext there. Yeah. Which is a shame, but you know, it was nice just to know that Watchmen's always there. Yeah,
that is cool. Yeah.
Sometimes I just text you cups of coffee out the blue that have like smiley faces in them. Yeah. I'm like, Watchmen, we're living in the Watchmen world.
Eric says, your discussion on older comics reminded me that it might be tough over there finding old comics. As a hobby in the summer, I go to garage sales looking for the Holy Grail, old comics for sale by people who don't know or care what they're selling. Sometimes I get lucky, finding 1960s X-Men 4 or Fantastic Four for $1 or so. It's always an adventure. Take care and keep up the good work. Eric, thank you so much again. And
thanks, Eric.
If anyone wants to get in touch with us, watchingthewatchmanpod@gmail.com. You know, let us know what you think, especially of Doomsday Clock, if you've got any thoughts on this issue, because it didn't come out too long ago. So let's dig into issue 5, Def, which is called There Is No God. And I don't know about you, but reading this, I was like, what's going on again? None of the stories really kept in my head.
Yeah, it's kind of very hit and miss. There's one bit in this that really offended me.
Okay.
We'll get to it when we do. But,
just... I mean, I know because you've told me, but I also could have guessed, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so basically this opens on a brain scan of Ozymandias' brain tumour. And it's quite a nice drawing, that. It looks almost photographic.
Art is always fantastic, it's just a shame everything else.
I really like it. It's sort of a cold, brutal reminder of what's going on. And I really do like this about the Watchmen comics in general. It's not this bombastic opener that you'd think. It's very real world. It's very gritty. It's like when Hollywood announces a sequel to something, they always say this one's going to be darker and grittier than the first one. This is sort of the Empire Strikes Back of comic books, isn't it? In the same way that the Empire Strikes Back is the Empire Strikes Back of movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a nice gritty opener. It's not something that you often see. I quite liked it for an opener.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
I like the way that the weird light, the tumour in his head, sort of transforms into the light that the Doctor's holding.
Yes, I agree. That is quite stylish, quite Moore-esque. Some of the dialogue slightly here. I mean, I'm sort of...
yeah, the dialogue's terrible.
Yeah, I'm sort of beating a dead horse. We know the dialogue's bad, but it is the sort of 12 years of Catholic school and the hyper-consciousness. And sorry I asked, as an intellectual goes on a long discussion, is such a cliche in all media. And it's just not really that interesting. And I had this feeling reading the whole issue, really. We're at issue 5 now. This should have legs. There's no excuses, and it's just still a little meandering for me.
I tell you who's got legs and he's run off, Tom. Geoff Johns. He's fucking run away, hasn't he?
What's going on then? So yeah, he's not involved with...
He's just left.
Yeah.
I think he's left. Obviously, he's written all of Doomsday Clock already.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I can imagine it's a very high demanding job, especially like you having to run a massive company. They're sort of getting their arse kicked a bit by Marvel at the moment. Warner Brothers will be fuming about that. Justice League barely made its money back. Like, look, the other day I got Black Panther on Blu-ray, and I just was Googling the cast, and it came up cinema listings. So Justice League barely made its money back. Black Panther's so popular that it's still at the cinema while it's out on Blu-ray.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Infinity War just passed $2 billion at the box office. So there's going to be a lot of pressure coming from above, and he's got to fucking live up to Watchmen. He's got little dickheads on podcasts slagging him off. This is very good. This is very good. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So he's just. I think he's just resigned, which is fair enough. Jim Lee's now going to head up DC again. He's done it before, so I know he can do a good job. And he's very comic orientated as well, so I'm sure it'll be fine. It's in good hands.
But I mean, wasn't Geoff Johns the guy spearheading this whole Rebirth project?
Yeah, but he also did New 52 as well.
Oh yeah.
So it's not like he's not seen it through to the end. So it's going to be interesting to see what he writes. But yeah, I kind of think everything might have just pushed him over the edge, and he probably just thought it's not worth it. From what I've seen, he's taken a writing job, so he's not the CEO of a company. So he probably just wants, he's made his money. He's had a good five. I'm trying to think when the New 52 was.
Was it like 2011, 12?
Yeah, that's roughly when he became CEO. So yeah, he's had a good inning. But obviously Warner Brothers at the moment are a fucking nightmare. Everything's going to shit a bit at DC. Rebirth's not going the way it's meant to be. There's loads of delays. So he probably just thought, fuck it, I'm off.
Yeah, and we get a lot of context here. We get a lot of world building, which, I mean, I'm just thinking really of The Leftovers, because the whole conceit is that 2% of the population disappears, and it does a really good job in the pilot of sort of feeding you stuff through TV reports and conversation and dialogue of this, completely abstract world. This is, a bit more spoon-fed, but again, we're sort of going over old topics here. We've established this. The art is fantastic.
I think what Johns has done, he's tried to focus more on like the sort of idioms and the similes between stuff rather than the actual plot. Like, you get this man is lucky as the opener, and we know he's got a brain tumor, which is probably more agonizing of a death than Falling 20 Stories. And it's hinted that Dr. Manhattan saved him by the comment, "You believe in God, Doc?" You know what I mean? Right. It's not clever, and it's sort of more trying to be wordplay, and rather than actually putting a foundation down and just being like, right, this is what's happening, which is something that Moore could naturally do. He could handle both of those spinning plates. Absolutely. And he just can't.
No, he can't. And I like him lying on the bed at the bottom of page 1 across as well. It's a nice thing. We get to see that he's chained as well, which is quite nice. But yeah, the sort of the juxtaposition, there's the word of there is no God and Superman's the only thing you can believe in anymore. It's slightly on the nose, as his gas mask is, and I'd rather be chained to the desk as he's pulling it out as well. Do people say as a phrase, "I'd rather be chained to a desk"? I've never actually heard. I know the concept, but I've never actually heard that being said in parlance. So I'm a little bit confused by that, and a bit confusing as well. That the one of the cops kind of looks like fucking Reggie.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. But
you know what I mean? Maybe I'm just being a bit, prejudiced here, but he kind of does.
Maybe Frank's has just run out of people to draw.
Yeah, you do get that.
Whenever I try and draw anything, I literally draw the same 5 faces over and over.
Yeah. Jeff Lemire's the worst for that. Like, I love him as a writer, and he also draws a lot of stuff for Image, but all his characters look the fucking same. It's like, it's really annoying. It's not interesting to see. But yeah, Ozzie gets out, as villains are wont to do, and then pretty much escapes the hospital as well in costume. And we get more context here, Def, with the whole metahumans global epidemic.
Yeah, and I do quite like how when Ozzie's lying in bed, it kind of is the same layout as it was when Superman was in bed in the first issue.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So that's quite nice. Yeah, that is nice. Again, it's sort of highlighting, whilst the Doctor's talking about near-death experiences, how like dark and cold and gritty this world is, and again, it's just sort of, it feels to me like this is kind of a wasted opportunity. And I do like when Ozymandius is escaping, how polite he is, asking them for the keys for the cuff. Like, we know he's going to beat them up, maybe he'll even kill them, but it sort of signifies how, to me at least, Ozymandias is the good guy in his own head. Like, he murdered thousands of people to save billions, and to himself he's always sort of the nicer person. And it is quite a little subtle thing that I do quite like, the way that he is trying to be polite before he beats them up, like the same way that he was when he killed all the people. He's just always got this side to him where he's being nice, and I do quite like how he goes and gets Bubastis as well.
Yeah.
It's a little cute back and forth. There may actually be some light in this dark, gritty world, Tom.
Potentially so, yeah. And, them intruding as well in uniform, and we don't get to see what's done if he does indeed hurt the guys in the park club, but we assume not, perhaps, and him going forward. And then we get this whole sequence with Lois in the office with it's Perry, right? That's the guy's name, Perry White. And even him saying, "Call me Mr. White when you're yelling at me," just bristles me slightly the wrong way. But I actually kind of like this. I kind of like him changing it to be a metahuman assassin for clicks, he mentions as well, which is so 2018.
Yeah, and I've got a little theory from this page, Tom.
Okay.
But it's only something I've noticed because I don't do my research, so this has probably been debunked and stuff. But I've only really realised it because they've spelt it out. Superman's son in DC Rebirth continuity is called John, and he's Superboy now because he's named after Jonathan Kent. But I think in this, the fact that they also say they say John's godfather, and I don't know if that's highlighting to me that John is Dr. Manhattan in a weird version of him.
Well, they're spelling John like John Osterman, aren't they, about the H?
Yeah,
as well?
Exactly. So Lois says, "Is it too late to ask someone else to be John's godfather?" And Clark goes, 10 years too late. Mm-hmm. Now, when Rebirth first happened in Rebirth issue 1, they did say that 10 years was stolen from the DC characters.
Okay.
So I don't know if that 10 years is hinting at that John is Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
So, and obviously it would explain how he's got his powers, but I don't know if they will do it. I really don't know. But it's just a little thing I noticed with the two names being similar. Yeah. And them saying 10 years too late.
And we get also a little bit of information on another metahuman, who Mikhail Arkadin, this idea of them representing their borders and some sort of international incident brewing. I like the fact that he was killed in Chernobyl, and that's probably been done before in comics, but it's quite an interesting origin. Yeah,
do you think they're trying to sort of, in the way that the Watchmen universe had the nuclear threat?
Yeah.
They're trying to make this the meta-human threat, and it's all going to come to a head at the end.
Yeah, I suppose so. In the same way that we had Redford like a Trump-like figure, we exist in these, hectic times of sort of interdisciplinary Russian influence as well. So it's kind of an obvious enemy to go for. And, we get word of the Superman theory as well. And what do you think? I mean, his design's kind of okay. There's so many flame supervillains. I didn't necessarily do anything too new with him.
It reminds me a lot of Firestorm, who's actually later in this issue.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was a weird character choice to have Firestorm in later, because if this was your first comic book, you'd probably think they're the same character. So yeah, just a very, very strange choice, but obviously it hints that he's going to make everything burn, and there's a storm coming in the DC universe. It's dark and gritty now, guys.
Yeah. And we get some more of Rorschach and Sally Jupiter. Saturn Girl. And it's... I don't know, there's a lot of subplots going on, which I kind of like, kind of don't. But, Johns is doing such a kind of a good job of mimicking Alan Moore. He's not on that level, but he's doing a good job of mimicry. But I don't think he's anywhere near as focused on the actual narrative through line, as we say.
Yeah.
But this isn't a bad exchange from them, but...
Do you think?
Oh. I don't know, I'm not saying it's good, but I'm just saying it's what don't you like about it?
See, I was going to say it's got the worst ever play on words that I've seen.
Okay.
It's when they walk past a big street light.
Yeah.
And the street light, the angle of it makes it look quite big. And Saturn Girl goes, "We need a great big light."
Yeah.
Like Alan Moore's turning in his grave. I know he's not dead.
No.
Yeah, I know DC wish he was, so they could bang out more of these books. But yeah, just horrendous.
He probably sleeps in a grave, but I agree. Yeah, this is bad. Yeah, this is bad. I mean, you can sort of hear her saying it like Harley Quinn. We need a great big light, and maybe she just said that, it'd be fine. But yeah, having that thing there, and I suppose there's the inference as well of what's his name, Mothman. And that sort of idea.
I've just thought what would have been better. You know how this entire issue all comes to a head at the bat signal.
Mm-hmm.
If they had said we need a great big light, and then they look in the sky and just see the bat signal off in the distance, and they could go there as well. Is that what they do anyway? I can't remember, Tom. This issue is completely forgettable.
It is forgettable, and it is clunky, and they are setting up lots of uninteresting...
Is that what they do? I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure...
What's my name again?
What's
this podcast about?
I think my dying words will be fuck Nathaniel Dusk. I literally do not care about this. I know that it's here just for the Black Freighter idea. None of it's interesting. I know I always go on about it. The Fade Out, set in a similar era, really interesting stories. This whole sequence, I can't care about. The only thing that stood out to me that I thought was interesting was he finds the accountant, a possible suspect, in the cupboard. And the guy's name was Alistair Tempest. And Tempest, which I remember from X-Files, means time. Because there was a Tempest Fugit, I think the episode was called Time Flies. So, maybe that's some sort of little reference into it sort of thing. But, so we have, Mr. Thunder escaping Johnny Thunder at 102 years old.
Yeah.
I mean...
I do quite like this. But,
it's not bad. Yeah, it's new, isn't it?
I do like the idea of an old superhero being in a nursing home, and everyone just sort of patronising him and acting like he's not important, because we pretty much do that in real life. Yep. Like World War II veterans get shat on, and they're massively underappreciated. And I really think that there's a nice metaphor there that we sort of overlook things that people have done because of senility, and watching him have to take the bus because he can't afford the train. It's quite heartbreaking. Yeah. And I kind of hope this guy gets a redemptive arc throughout this, because he was also shit on in Rebirth issue 1. And it'd just be nice to see him finally get something.
And we see onto his desk books that may have influenced his escape. We see a headline claiming that green fire has consumed all American steel. And Aladdin as well. And the wonderful lamp, which he references later as well. And I'm not quite sure what that other one is. The mythical lands of something. I'm not. Yeah, it's kind of cut off there. Again, the art's fantastic. I think I love the room. I love the the long drapes leading out and them looking down the window. Any thoughts on the Nathaniel Dusk sequence that we get after that?
Oh, really switched off for it,
Yeah.
But to be fair to Johns, I did it for Black Freighter as well. But yeah, it was just kind of just there, sort of blocking the plot. I don't know what it is with single issues. I always just kind of want to rush through them and sort of think of them as a whole.
Yeah.
And these bits they're very plodding, they get in the way, especially in a book that the main plot hasn't really taken off yet.
No.
It's just kind of, I don't really know the context of it yet. And,
no.
I mean, it might be something that's improved on a second read, but for the meantime, it's just, I don't know why it's there.
No, and even if Black Freighter early on was harder to understand, harder to engage if you didn't understand, the sort of the metaphor that it was for, it was more inhabiting this sort of bloody buccaneer writing style. That was what was fun about it. But here, Johns, I'm thinking of, it reminds me a little bit of Home Alone, keep the change sort of idea, but none of it's that interesting. There's not like funny one-liners or slang, and it's just a bit tame.
Yeah, and something about the Black Freighter it was very visceral.
Yeah.
Like watching him stab sharks and the eating seagulls as the blood drips down his mouth. Those images sort of do stick in your mind, whereas this, I don't know. It's just noise in the background. I know it's meant to be noise in the background, but it just is.
It is.
I don't know why it's in.
At the page 9, which is essentially about Mr. Thunder commuting to the factory, If you look at the top left with the queue of people, there's like a kid on the... Look at the bottom right of that panel. There's like a kid lying on the floor. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know if that has any importance or anything, but I just noticed that. I was kind of scouring the crowd to see if there's anyone there as well. But yeah, he's a bit delusional. You know, mentioning his lamp. Doesn't have enough money, and I guess it's painting a picture as well of the sort of the public at large. They are quite testy, aren't they? I think normally if an old man was confused, you'd sort of... Maybe you wouldn't help him, but you wouldn't be aggressive. But this guy just shouts at him, telling him to take the bus.
Yeah, it's just weird. But I do quite like it. It's a nice creative thing that Johns has done. In the same way that Mothman had his scene in the insane asylum. It's nice that Johns has taken the time to do this, and it is, to me, one of the highlights of the book, in the same way that the Mothman section was. I wish it was more like that. If it was set all in like an old people's home or an insane asylum, and it was just about two people escaping, I would have loved it. But there's just so much extra noise that doesn't need to be here, and it's very convoluted, and you're constantly jumping back and forward between plots. Like Watchmen, when you go back and read it as well you've done, you realise that these single issues are very focused. So you have a Dr. Manhattan origin story, you have a Rorschach origin story, you have an issue where it's just focused on Dan and Laurie, you've got an issue where it's just about Laurie and Dr. Manhattan on Mars debating, you know, the meaning of life. It's very focused, whereas this is just jumping back and forth between plot lines, and because of that it feels very jumbled. And then into that mix you throw in the fucking black and white TV show that I can't even remember the name of. What's my name again?
You're completely right. And even the sort of the sequencing between scenes as well, it lacks that kind of, you know, that continuity, that smoothness. We move on, and we get Ozzie meeting Batman. Yeah,
which I did think was a nice little scene. Batman this time sort of the spinning villain in the chair. It sort of reminds me a bit of James Bond. And he's sitting reading the journal. It's really well drawn, and it's beautifully blacked out. And I do think it's, whilst it is the most somber meeting thus far, it does work for me. But it gets completely derailed later, which I'll talk about. And once again, the Batman characterization in this book just doesn't make any sense.
It just falls out. It's so ungraceful. Yeah, I do like him silhouetted in Archie's eye, and I'm not sure if it's a callback to when we see, when Comedian rapes Miss Jupiter, and you see it in Moloch's death ray. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just him in front of the eye there. But yeah, I agree, and I think the darkness is cool as well. And I like how Bubastis is. You kind of see a little tinge of fur in the glimmer, but you don't really see much beyond that. And we get on the next page, page 11, something Watchmen, the bread and butter of Watchmen Death, the 9-panel grid. It's our only encounter with Comedian, and it's not bad. I don't mind this little bit.
It's a bit of juxtaposition here, Tom.
It is,
because Comedian's basically investigating a body of a guy that's been murdered. Two policemen walk in. He just goes, "I'll give you two options, lads. One is that I'll slit your throat, and the other that is I'll just walk out." And they just let him walk out, and it's sort of a nice juxtaposition on the way that Comedian's sort of respected by two guards that run in and try and stop him, whereas Ozymandius before had to take one of them hostage and beat the other one up. And it just showcases how much more intimidating the Comedian is, because they just let him walk out. And it's very sort of more humour on this section, yet there's a dark, gritty side to it.
Well, yeah, there's someone with their hand, sliced off their wrist.
It's so dark and gritty that.
It is. And I like how he takes one of the cigars from his pocket as well. And the colouring's excellent. The bright flashlight, the heat of the lighter on his face, the neon of the jukebox curving round as well.
So gritty.
But is it me, or does Comedian have a little prance in his step as he leaves the bar?
Yeah, it's quite nice.
Yeah.
And obviously he's investigating a murder by the mime and marionette. So it is good how they tie into them on the next page. I have just noticed that literally every page is dealing with a different character.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
it is jumping from plot line to plot line, really, just with stupid wordplay. But anyway, we'll continue with it.
You're right, actually. We had 6 plot lines in 11 pages.
Yeah, that's crazy,
That
isn't
is
it?
crazy.
That's too much, John.
And none of them are that good. There's not like, oh, I can't wait to get back to this one. They're all like, oh, yeah, whatever. Yeah. They're killing more people. They're looking for the Joker. Money isn't important to them. See, there's things I like and there's things I hate. And sometimes I need to think to myself, as you've said fairly before, if Moore did this, would you hate on it? And I don't know. So them saying your bills don't have Nixon on them is cool. I like that.
I like that, yeah.
I don't like that there's a bill hovering in the third panel so we can see what they're saying. I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah.
But then Moore would maybe have done that.
I do like the Nixon comment, to be honest, because it does sort of speak to Nixon's ego. Especially in the Watchmen universe, where he's pretty much given unlimited power. Like, you do wonder if someone like that had have been president, if that was the reason for the nuclear escalation. Like, I always loved how the comedian originally thought that the world would have gone mad if America had have lost to Vietnam, which is of course what happened to us in our reality. Which might have forced us to sort of look at ourselves and stop being bullies. So the fact that America won the Vietnam War in the Watchmen universe, it gave this guy like Nixon, it gave him so much power that you can see why the world did escalate to like being on the brink of nuclear war. So I do like the mention of Nixon here, and the fact that he's so egotistical that he's put himself on the money.
Yeah, the current president, not one who founded the country. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so it's a nice touch for me.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think being kind of nice. Yeah, we both agreed and said that it's like tasteful and unoffensive. Yeah, so they continue to hunt the Joker. We kind of know where this is going, and the meeting at the light. And I guess this happens a lot in Batman comics. I'm not seeing it myself, but I like the bat signal on the clouds.
Yeah, it is really nice. It doesn't actually happen, though. It's not often drawn like that. It's sort of very pushed up against the clouds, and it's got so much texture to it, whereas normally it's just quite flat.
Yeah.
So it is nice seeing it drawn like that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's nice. It's the bulge, and then corresponded with the logo against his own chest, and the police sirens. I mean, Batman is always fucking getting hunted by law enforcement. It seems inevitably so, and they barrel off in Archie as they're being assaulted. And I do quite like the splash panel at the bottom of page 13 with, I don't know, his face. Batman's face is kind of weird though. He looks kind of pouty. I don't quite know how to explain it. And you can see the Ferris wheel they smash through in the back as well, going behind them. Like, again, the art is great. Like, I really, I have to say, Gary Franks does a great job here. And what do you think about Rorschach and Bats, which is probably the longest sequence between two characters we get in the issue?
You mean Ozzie?
Ozzie, sorry, yeah. Going back through and, sort of debating their own merits, who they are.
Yeah, and I think it's quite nice how it's set to the backdrop of the protests, where, like, in issue 1, people were protesting against Ozymandius and they were coming to rip him down in the same way that now people are protesting against Batman. I don't know exactly what it's signifying. Maybe it's just sort of a metaphor for taking down the corporate power that appears to be evil. But I can't really see why anyone would ever want Batman arrested by the police. Like, he's a vigilante, but he saves the city all the time. He never kills. He never harms innocents. So I don't exactly know why people would be after him. Like, people love Tommy Robinson, and he's a fucking dickhead.
Right.
But they hate Batman. I don't get it. I don't get it, Tom.
No,
you don't love Tommy Robinson, do you?
I don't.
Wow.
I don't. I mean,
but you love Doomsday Clock now.
Tommy Robinson is the Doomsday Clock of public speakers. I will say that. Yeah,
that's a quote, isn't it?
Eric Ferguson's going to be like, "Who's Tommy Robinson?" But give him a look up, Eric. You're not gonna approve of him, I'm certain. And we get some more, as you mentioned. Here's Firestorm as well, and flipping back and forth the argument between, are these created beings or are they in fact natural occurrences. Now, Def, I'm guessing what you mentioned prior, the scene that really pissed you off, is the bottom of this page 14.
Well, I don't know why you're guessing it, Tom. You even said at the start of the video that I told you which one it was.
Dramatic effect, but yeah.
You've completely lost all the mystique. Yeah, so to me, just the ISIS beheading just seemed really out of place. Basically what happens is it shows Jihadi John with a hostage in an orange T-shirt. You know, it's something that's kind of been burned into your head the last couple of years. And it's a nice callback that they use Jack Ryder, who's a famous journalist in the Batman comics. But just as a scenario, it seems too soon. Like, these were actual beheadings that happened. And the fact that they've sort of used it to deliver a punchline, it's quite distasteful for me. Like, I rarely do get offended by stuff. But I don't know, this just kind of rubbed me up the wrong way. I mean, they could have used a million different ways to showcase a superhero, which in this case is Black Adam, saving people. And it just seems a bit strange. Like, this is a real terrorist attack, and it's a very, very, very brutal one. And it only happened a couple of years ago. It would be like a recreation of like the Manchester bombings or something, some other tragedy, and using that to show what would happen if like a superhero was there. Like, I probably shouldn't have even mentioned the Manchester bombings there, because I know that, you know, it's quite recent, and I really apologise if anyone sort of takes that to heart. But even that reaction there that I've just had to myself, again, sort of just highlights how bad it is to use that. I just don't get why Johns is using this in what is essentially just a comic book. Like, can you imagine if you knew one of the people who'd been beheaded, and you're just reading through this comic, and you get at this point, you'd be fuming. And we do talk a lot about things like 9/11 and JFK, and how these real events and real tragedies, they've almost become fictionalized due to their overuse in stories. And this is just a step too far for me personally. Like, what do you think on it? Yeah. Were you offended by it, or?
I wasn't offended, but I was surprised, and I totally see where you come from, and I do think it's slightly unnecessary. I guess it's making reference explicitly in the fact that he's a journalist to James Foley, who was one of the more famous passings, which was 2014, so not long ago at all, about 4 years ago. And there's something a bit rah-rah about it as well, a bit like superheroes beheading terrorists, and it just feels, and the fact that his head's sort of fleeing across and he's being called a motherfucker and all this, and I don't know, it's a little gauche for me personally. It's not ISIS, of course, it's Kali Yuga. And we get our first mention of, completely fictionalized, completely not trying to be Qatar or Iran, Kandak.
Oh, no, that's been around for years, Tom.
Oh, has it?
Yeah, Black Adam's from a nation called Kandak. They sort of police themselves.
Okay.
But yeah, that's been in comics for decades and decades.
Right. And what we're seeing gets smashed eventually, of course. Riots are continuing. And what do you think of Batman's assessment of Ozzie, of being a victim of hero syndrome?
Well, yeah, it's quite weird, because I watched a lot of psychological documentaries on like the psyche of Batman, and it's something that Batman's often accused of as well. They talk about how basically Ozymandius caused this problem and swooped in and saved the day. And in the same way that they talk about how Batman often creates a lot of his villains, he's responsible for the escalation of masked villains in Gotham, but he's sort of the remedy for it. And the US government as well is always like accused of hero syndrome, where they go and invade places like Iraq that like were doing fine on their own, and just sort of try and paint themselves out as patriots for doing it. Like, I'm not, if anyone was involved in that war,
sure,
I'm not saying that you're not a hero or anything, or trying to dismay that. It's just what people often do say of the US government. And whilst it's true in Ozymandias' case, it's difficult to confirm whether the other ones are. Mainly to me because Batman was a response to the crime level in Gotham, in the same way that the invasion of Iraq was a response to 9/11. Again, it's very 9/11 centric, this episode, isn't it?
Yeah, and We learn about the immediate withdrawal of all troops from the Middle East. And yeah, geopolitically, things are changing, certainly for the worst. And Lex is here. Lex is back, speaking to Lois, and Lex has a theory about the Superman theory, right?
Yeah, and I wonder, there's a little mention here about how someone shot people wearing a Superman armband.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this is like a hint at Batman v Superman. Because there's a scene in that where there's a nightmare sequence where soldiers in that wear Superman armbands. Yeah, I don't know. But it sort of highlights how people often commit horrendous acts in the name of God and religion, to me at least. And they kind of give it a motive when you don't know even if it's true or not. And the person, God, or in this case Superman, he never intended for this to happen. But someone's committed this atrocity in his name.
No, there's so much co-opting of history going on in this comic, like we said with the James Foley stuff. And I bet in the crowd in the next couple of issues, someone will have a placard that says "Meta-human lives matter."
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Totally. That's gonna be there, isn't it? It's just gonna be.
Yeah. Well, they've got. We no longer want to be where we're not wanted. Is the line here, Tom? And I wonder if that's why Geoff Johns has left. You did this, Tom.
You made him leave.
Yeah.
We see Superman as well, staring down.
Oh, he's looking dead sad, isn't he? It's everyone's least favourite depiction of Superman. Just moping around in the sky, looking sad. Yeah. They did it in Superman Returns and everyone hated it, and they did it in Batman v Superman and everyone fucking hated it.
I guess with this whole comic, I was hoping for something a bit grander in scale, but it's still very intimate, and the characters are starting to converge on each other somewhat, and I think it kicks up a little bit as we're getting into the final act, as it were, but you just think that a lot of this could have been streamlined, right?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of filler here, and whilst Watchmen could be argued that it's got a lot of filler, it's more world building.
Yeah.
Whereas this just seems like stuff's happening.
And we get Old Man Thunder going through the rain on the last stop, and he's warned by the driver this isn't the best neighbourhood, apparently. The driver, who has an odd silhouette, the nose, a sort of pig nose. I don't know if that's some fucking obscure Batman character, or maybe it's just no one in particular. But, and he's heading in to the All-American Steel idea. And what do you think of this sequence, then, him sort of being accosted?
Yeah, so it's quite well drawn. It's basically smack rats or crackheads, as they're known in America. And I love the way that Frank's drawn them. He probably used himself as a mirror after having to stay up all night drawing this shit. But, they're really well drawn. And I do like how Captain Thunder sort of comes in at this point as well, because earlier they say that there's a mystery that someone who created the metahumans for the government was themselves once a member of the Justice League. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing that, Captain Thunder's probably got something to do with that. Especially because it cuts right to him and they've got absolutely no subtlety in this comic form. Just spell it out for you every chance they get.
Very true, yeah.
What do you think of the smack rats?
Yeah, I think they're drawn well. Give me a wallet before I poke your eyes out. Doesn't really read well to me. I think something better could have been written there. And yeah, it's not bad. I think he's drawn by some sort of sense of fate clearly to this idea, and he's being tested as he enters. And we get more stuff from Ozzie and Bats as well. Your world was worse off than mine. And I quite like this sort of philosophical argument that they go through as well. And Batman not wanting to hurt the police, of course.
Yeah, I don't like it. Because I think it just makes Batman look like an idiot.
Right.
Like, he's read this book, he's come to the conclusion that Ozymandius is a bad guy. If he wanted to take him down, he would have done it at the fairground and not in the air. Like, they ran away because 2 policemen showed up. Are you stupid? Batman wouldn't give a shit, mate. He was trained by the League of Assassins. Do you think he cares about 2 policemen showing up? He would have just taken the policemen out. Instead, now he's destroying half of downtown because he's in the air fighting in Archie. He's just adding fuel to the fire that everyone's going to hate him because he's destroying all this shit. He would have just arrested him, Tom.
Yeah.
Back at the fairground. He knew he didn't like the lad. I don't know what's going on here.
No, no. And we get a mime and marionette on the rooftop following the light. And we hear some of the stuff that Ozzie did as well, weaning the world of gasoline and oil, curing famine, negotiating nuclear disarmament. But obviously, what was that all for? And we see some clips, I guess it's within Archie, this TV screen, of Black Adam. Black Adam, I know his name. Who is this guy in DC Mythos?
He's a Shazam villain.
Right.
So he's got the same power as Shazam. He's actually just an old man, very, very old. But he said Shazam. He got transformed into this Black Adam character, and he rules the nation of Kandak. The Rock's got cast as him.
Yeah.
In one of the movies that DC's never gonna make. The DC just announce a different movie every week, Tom. It's doing my head in. They've never made them.
Isn't Todd Phillips doing like a Joker origin or some shit?
Oh, they're doing 2 Joker movies.
Oh my god.
Right, Marvel announced 20 movies. Do you know how many they didn't make?
I'm guessing 0.
You're right.
Yeah.
Inhumans didn't get a theatrical release, but they still made it.
Yeah, wasn't that horribly panned? Yeah.
They still made it, Tom.
Yeah.
DC have announced 38. They've made 5.
Ah.
It's ridiculous. Every week they're announcing something. It's got to the point where my mate who likes DC, I just text him every time they announce one, like, this isn't getting made. Every fucking week. Anyway, Black Adam, The Rock, look out for it.
I've said it before, DC. You can turn your fortunes around if you give Darren Aronofsky an all-star Superman script.
Yeah.
Or someone like that. Maybe not Darren Aronofsky, but someone like that. Like Fincher or someone.
They just need to stop copying Marvel. Yeah. Like Justice League, they made so many changes in it and spent so much money because they were just constantly like second guessing themselves. And they probably had quite a good script, but they just got no faith. They've got no faith.
Batman's falling out. The old man's finding the lantern. I mean, what do you make of this? Like him reading a headline that there's green smoke, him getting a coach over, and then just finding it on a plinth.
Yeah, it's a bit stupid, isn't it? But it's one of them things. I didn't really notice that at the time, but now you mentioned it.
But it's just I don't know. Maybe I want to say some light will be shed, but it already should. Like you shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't want that to go further into the issue. The bat grapple comes into play.
Oh, it's back.
Key component, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so you I quite like him sort of swinging above the aching arms, and some okay sequences here. The old man gets the lantern. Why does he want the lantern, do you think?
It's Green Lantern, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I know, but like, what is it to him? Like, what,
Because he used to be in the Justice League.
Can they use
Captain Thunder.
Can Captain Thunder use the lantern? I don't know.
Probably. I think people can just put on the ring and just wield the power.
Right.
They can. I'm saying I think. I know they can, Tom. Yeah. I've seen it. So yeah, it's nice. I like it. I don't know where it's going to go. It's a bit intriguing. It's caught my interest.
Yeah. It's a decent ending, and I mean, I'm sure you would have noticed it yourself and everyone reading, but I quite like the lantern being held above him, very similar to Hollis Mason with the statue. Yeah, I did like that. Yeah. Cute. It's really nice. Yeah. That's nice. That's subtle. I like that a lot, actually. And they're rescued by Rorschach and Miss Saturn, and I quite like. Don't worry, they were all going to overdose tonight anyway. Which isn't really a consolation, but it's kind of a funny line here. And we end with things coming together, I suppose. And I think issue 6 should be a bit more interesting. We get the Joker right at the end as well. See, I didn't think that was interesting. No? I think it was just it ends on a cliffhanger. Yeah. It's got Batman caught by the rioters and the Joker showing up, but that doesn't really do anything for me. It's just sort of there. It's just sort of a Deus Ex Machina. It's a cheap way to get you to come back next time to see what happens. Yeah, it's just. I really don't care. No. I mean, probably shouldn't be doing a podcast about it, Tom. I'm sure the listeners probably would much rather have someone who does care, but it's beat me, Tom. You know what? You know when it killed me, Tom? What's that? When they were looking at this picture of Black Adam upside down, and the dialogue balloon said, "I've turned the world upside down." Oh, yeah. And that's the bit, that was just the bit that killed it. Yeah, yeah. It's you need these inferences, these mirrorings, to be a certain level of depth and not to be just completely shallow like that, because then they're not fun to find out. But yeah, that one is terrible. I agree. So, and then Batman in a heap. Pretty. Yeah, it's not that tense. What's going to happen? We have the Moth again, flying into the Lantern's flame. And a quote from the American playwright Eugene O'Neill: "When men make gods, there is no God."
Yeah, which is a nice quote, but it's been Googled, hasn't it, Tom?
It has. And we get the back matter is
better than the issue itself. I genuinely think the supplement
it's cool. I really like this, and I love the fact that there's a sticker on the bottom right, the Good Life Home for the Elderly, where it's being delivered. And of course, look at the date. It's a year in the future, May 30th, 2019, and we're learning about the meta-human menace. And I read, I didn't read it, but I went through the Multiversity, Grant Morrison.
Oh wow! I've just got that again. I bought it years ago.
Yeah.
When it was quite cheap, and I sold it. I don't know why, looking back, because I even enjoyed it at the time.
Yeah, I didn't really read the story, but in the middle of it, there is a guide.
Yeah, the Watchmen.
There's a guide to all the planets. And obviously, I always go on about how much I love Grant Morrison's imagination. And it's so fucking cool. All these heroes and all these twists on the heroes. And some of them are like, the Batman from the Future universe. And some of them are really weird universe. And some of them are like 1920s steampunk or whatever. And it's just really fun to see. And we sort of get this here with the metahuman arms racing up. And I do like this. We get the France, the heroes. I think I said to you before, there's one called the Thief of Arts, which I really want to learn about what he's going for. But yeah, it's Johns flexing his creative muscles. And I've got a lot of respect. I think if I was given this and had to come up with cool names and ideas, I would struggle to match him.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite nice. It's a nice little guide. I do like stuff like this, because I would probably read it if it was in a magazine anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a nice addition to the comics. Going back to Multiversity, did you read Pax Americana?
I didn't know.
That is like a standalone Watchmen remake by Grant Morrison.
Oh right.
It's just one issue, but he pretty much remakes Watchmen. But he does it with the Charlton characters. Really, really good. One of the best standalone issues that I've ever read of anything. Really recommend you check that out.
Yeah, I definitely will.
It's really good.
So yeah, for those not aware, we're sort of learning about the metahumans in America, but then crucially the ones overseas. So even in Dear Britain, they have Knights Inc. over there, including Godiva, Looking Glass, Ridge, Mrs. Hyde, which you can kind of picture, and yeah, I really like this. This is probably one of my favourite things that I've seen in Doomsday Clock, the whole series so far.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really well drawn. Some of the covers on this you could use as like a phone background. They're really good.
Yeah.
But not my phone background, Tom, because it's of me and my wife and it'll never change. Don't try and change it.
Israel have their own group as well, which we're learning about. Seraph and Gollum, which is quite cool because it's a very Jewish thing, the golem as the idea. I think, I can't remember, in mythology, it's sort of a creature that's collected of all the sadness you've strewn in the world and that idea. So who knows how many of these characters are actually going to meet, but hopefully quite a few, because, I don't know, the Watchmen and DC characters are a bit boring at the moment, so maybe they can throw a few interesting ones in there. And we close with a sequence on Kandak and Black Adam, so clearly the pieces are in place for the opening issues, right? The next issues.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to that in 4 months' time.
Yeah. Let's have a look actually when that's going to be released. I think it literally is like August or some shit.
Yeah. Well, while you're doing that, Tom, I'm going to read out some of the comments from the last Doomsday Clock. Okay. So Josh Woo Cool, he said, in terms of my interest in Doomsday Clock, I'm more interested in the possibility of them using Doomsday Clock to bring back characters that we haven't seen in DC for a while. For me, hopefully the character Vic Sage and the Question will come back. Chase Soho 2, please send in better, like, I'd love it if someone sent in a really offensive username. I'm misreading them out. Saturn Girl is a member of the Legion of Superheroes along with Brainiac 5 and Monel. And apparently Byron walking back into the fire has something to do with Before Watchmen. But again, he's a moth drawn to the flame, and the book implies that Byron would fly away repeatedly and never get caught. With Reggie as his friend, it makes sense as he'd always have someone to let him in, but I don't know what type of security a mental hospital will have. Byron also says he's never been much of a fighter, but knew enough, which could be why his training was so effective, because New Rorschach says at the beginning that he was never a fighter himself. Then he goes on to say, this was by far my favourite issue of the series. Why is it a bad thing that they use an entire issue to explore the New Rorschach story? We'll find out about Vitan the comedian and Superman soon enough. Jesus fucking Christ. That's how he ends it, Tom. Human.
Yeah. It sort of derailed it for us slightly, but I think in book hardback form, maybe it wouldn't be the biggest crime. Yeah,
which they needed. To me, right, I just read comics pretty much as volumes.
Yeah.
I hate this staggered release. Whenever I do decide to pick up stuff issue by issue, it always does my head in that I've got to wait a month. And I do kind of wish that one day they'd just like release it, like the way that they did the Killing Joke or Batman Arkham Asylum by Grant Morrison. They just released it as a complete package. So, and I really just wish they would do that once in a while. Just something like this. Even if it was 30 quid, Tom, I'd still buy it.
Yeah. It would be nice. I mean,
but instead I'm having to steal it off the internet every month.
Unfortunately so, yeah. And it seems that issue 6 is going to come out August 29th. Pretty much the end of the summer. And we're recording this on the 14th of June. So, we've got a fucking long day. Have you seen the cover of the issue 6?
No, what is it?
It's actually probably the best cover so far. It's like,
describe it, because the listeners won't be able to see it either.
It is Marionette as an actual marionette puppet with lots of other characters as sort of cartoony puppets. Interestingly, hanging next to her is Hollis Mason era Night Owl, and you can also see a Richard Nixon doll and a Grim Reaper doll and a sort of witch behind her. But the mainly two recognisable ones are Marionette and Hollis Mason there. So intriguing. Apparently, it's quite cool, isn't it?
I definitely recommend people Google that and look it up. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's quite good. And just a little bio, the little byline here is saying Geoff Johns, Gary Frank could do this groundbreaking event as the mime and marionette.
Not very groundbreaking when it's a remake of something else.
No,
go on.
yeah, completely unoriginal event as mime and marionette take centre stage in Doomsday Clock issue 6. So it's coming, people.
Are you looking forward to the mime and marionette taking centre stage?
They're going to have to do a lot. They're going to have to do a lot to convince me that they've been worthwhile. But yeah, I mean, we're not even fucking halfway through. Like, there's another 6 issues after number 6, so it's going to be difficult. But as ever, we are here. So subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the channel. You've been taking a bit of a break, Def. I know. So the viral smashes have slowed, right?
Not really. They're not as big as they were, but I knew that would happen because the movies aren't as big as they were either.
Yeah.
Like Jurassic World, I did a video on that the other week because it came out over here. It's not been released like in the US or anything, so I knew it wasn't going to do crazy. But it might pick up, Tom. You might see me bragging about my views on a tweet very soon. I might be texting you like I used to when I was dead excited about going viral. But yeah, the movies, there's not really anything coming out for the rest of the year, so I'm just going to have to go back to my Netflix movies, Tom.
Do it.
Get the Netflix movie, Ending Explained, yeah? But I've just watched it on Netflix. No, you need the Ending Explained here, but it was really simple and straightforward. Look, click the video.
Well, subscribe to Def's channel. Subscribe to us on iTunes as well.
I like how you're saying they've slowed down, Tom. I've just checked my channel. I've had 200,000 views in the last month.
Wow!
So it's doing better than this bloody podcast is.
It is. Yeah, I think most things.
This podcasting bringing in them 200,000 views, Tom. I tell you that.
It's not. We've got to be brutally honest with our listener here. Shout out Eric. But yeah, if you want to email us in as well, get in touch with us. WatchmenPod@gmail.com. Yeah, we will be back for issue 11 of Watchmen very soon. I can't believe we're almost done with that. But Def, any closing thoughts?
No. If God is a DJ, life is a rhythm.
Well, yeah, this has been Tom, and thank you as always for listening, guys. So yeah. This has been... What do I even say at the end? I can't even remember.
And
it's goodbye from me, right?
From me.
Yeah, it's a good night from Kwei. There we go.
That was terrible, that one.